How's it going, guys? And I'm here with a review of Space Jam: A New Legacy. Now, this is a film that, since its announcement, since it was announced that they were going to be producing this years and years ago, and it was really like a weird production schedule. It was all over the place. They were like gonna do it. Then I remember hearing announcements that they weren't going to do it. There were like a lot of mock-ups of the poster, and it wasn't a real poster. And then when you thought you saw some real info and information, they finally had like a theatrical poster or teaser. It turned out that it was just a fan-made fake. And I remember everyone was ripping in the comments, "Oh, come on, we can't do this." But it always was pretty much cemented even back then that it was going to be LeBron James. I'm pretty sure that was announced along with it. Now, Space Jam, originally released in 1996, the first movie, we were under the impression for many, many years that there was only going to be that one movie. Now, if you go back and I looked at some things on Wikipedia and researched online, it turned out that there was supposed to be a sequel being planned as early as the movie being released, even before it was released the same year. So this was something that was going to happen one way or another. And this is another movie in a long run of other films that have this huge, massive gap in having a sequel made. And we've seen tons of these. I've reviewed some of them here on this channel. And this is definitely one of them. 25 years exactly. And I guess it's nice that it is exactly 25 years. And the one thing is, so it's like a 25th anniversary sort of. The other thing is that they chose to make this a direct sequel, which I'm a big fan of doing that. I absolutely, and I've stated it here numerous times on this channel, I'm really a big opponent, not a proponent, a big opponent of endless reboots and just taking ideas, old ideas, recycling them, and then almost trying to pass them off as your own and doing them worse. So this film, I really expected not to enjoy it, and I didn't love it, but I have to say it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and there were even parts that I enjoyed. So we're going to get into all that. So something that's very interesting, there's a few things here that we need to talk about. The director here, Malcolm D. Lee. Now, this is a guy that's actually the cousin of Spike Lee. This kind of surprised me. I was like, whoa. And not only that, but this guy actually has a lot of more movies under his belt than the original director of Space Jam. The director for Space Jam 1996, John Pitka. This guy only had one other movie under his belt, and it was a movie with Richard Dreyfuss in it, and that movie was a bomb. Now, Malcolm D. Lee, this guy actually had several movies under his belt up to this point. Now, nothing too successful, and the one thing that I found really hilarious about his filmography was the fact that, keep in mind that this is a sequel, right? And a lot of people didn't want this sequel. People challenged the sequel. They were opposed to the sequel, much as I was. But he directed Scary Movie 5 and Barbershop The Next Cut. And to me, I gotta say, this is so weird because those are two movies that, overstood their welcome, where they really dragged those films out and beat them into submission. And then you have Barbershop, where that already had a sequel, and then they brought it out many years later, and no one liked it. Now I see that this guy is responsible for two films that were a very popular series at one point. Scary Movie was a film that I only enjoyed the first entry. I enjoyed the first Barbershop film. But, all the sequels pretty much were big-time bombs for me anyway. I know financially they weren't, but they were not really good films, and they weren't good follow-ups, and they really took a concept that was good and original for both films, and they really just, wrang it out like an old towel, and they didn't know when to stop. So I just thought that was a little humorous. But this is a film that, there's been a lot of time between them. Never had a follow-up to it. So, I was under protest watching this. I was like, oh, I don't want to watch this. I think it would make a good video. I think, some of my subscribers are, around the same age as me. They probably would enjoy hearing me talk about this film. So, I was like, I'll bite. I'll watch it. Also, my friend J-Man or Riot also told me the other day when we were watching Money in the Bank that the film was really not that bad, and that it was, in his opinion, not a waste of time to watch. I was like, all right, I'll bite. I'll watch the film. So I did, and, well, I didn't really like it. I liked parts of it, as I mentioned before, but this is a film where it's quite evident, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be echoing these sentiments. I don't think it's a terrible movie, and I think a lot of people won't even admit that. They're probably just going to say it's bad because that's how the internet is, and that's how a lot of reviewers are. Very few people are willing to do what I do and kind of like play devil's advocate. I notice a lot of times whenever I make a negative review about something, people are like, do you like anything? This channel is full of a lot of things where I have been really honest and praised a lot of things that a lot of other people hated, and also was very fair to a lot of things. Look at my Star Wars reviews for the sequels. The sequel trilogy. Go back and watch those. Watch any one of those videos, and you will see takes on that. You'll see my takes also in the Avengers films, where I really break from the mold on a lot of people. While people are saying, great movie, all robotic and shit, I'm there kind of saying like, okay, let's take a step back and look at this, and not be a complete fanboy. It's okay to like Marvel, but not bow down to everything that they do. And, you can see that. So, okay, so what is this movie about? It's very different plot-wise, you'll have to say. I mean, getting to the game, I mean, obviously in the end, you already know it's LeBron James teaming up with the Looney Tunes it's not intergalactic. There's not really any space really involved here. It's, it's called the Cyberverse. And it's not space, so I get why they want to call it Space Jam 2, but when LeBron's entering in, it kind of does look like space, so it's sort of space in another dimension. Whatever, it's kind of stretching it a bit. But his son, Dom, does not really share the same love for basketball as his dad, LeBron. And, before we get into any of that, the intro is kind of very similar to Space Jam, where we see LeBron as a kid. And then, we also see an appearance from Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle on Game Boy, which was, like, whoa, like that was actually kind of fun seeing that. And the whole point of that is like, he's focused on the Game Boy when LeBron is a kid. And so, the coach tells him, you got to get your mind in the game and stop with the video games. And that's kind of a lead in because his son Dom is in the video games. He's into designing video games. LeBron doesn't really understand it. And then LeBron gets told that he, is getting a movie proposal, like some type of project. And he goes to Warner Brothers Studios and he gets a pitch, like a digital pitch from Algorithm. And like, this is, I don't know, it's not a person or anything. It's like, it kind of doesn't really look too good for Warner Brothers, that gets accused of, and Hollywood in general gets accused of, making manufactured movies and everything. But here you have a Warner Brothers produced movie, and like you see Sarah Silverman and you see what's his name from The Walking Dead is in there, and like they're watching this algorithm, and it's telling them, what movie they think would be successful. And that would be like scanning LeBron James and having him star in all these like past things, like have him be in Batman and Harry Potter. And he pans the idea, does LeBron. He thinks it's a stupid idea, but his son is like fascinated by the technology. And his son, wanders off, into the studio, and they come upon like a mainframe. And this is where the algorithm lives, and his name is Algae Rhythm, and it's Don Cheadle. And I think Don Cheadle does an adequate performance. It's not a mind-blowing performance. It's not a Danny DeVito performance like in the original film. And you're going to see soon after that this film is really lacking a lot in the same type of humor. There is some funny parts. They do some clever things. I mean, the difference here is they have now, I don't think they were able to do this in the first film, where they really utilize the Warner Brothers license. And they're showing you Batman. They're showing you Superman. They're showing you Wonder Woman. And then we get into the game. And then we see that there is countless Warner Brothers owned properties. You see The Mask there. You see Jabberjaw. You see Hanna-Barbera cartoons. You see Fred Flintstone. You see the 60s Batman characters. Someone is dressed up as the Adam West Batman. There's Robin. There's Catwoman. And there's even It. So, here's the thing here. And when I was talking to my friend J-Man Wright, he was saying the same thing. So, Pepe Le Pew, this guy is a you-know-what. He's a guy that forces women, and, that's inappropriate. They wrote him out of the entire film. They de-animated him, or as they put it in this movie, what the deal is that if LeBron's team and the Toon Squad don't win, they're going to get deleted. They deleted Pepe Le Pew from this movie, but the murderous alien clown, It, the rated R movie, It, yeah, he's in this film. He shows up. You see characters from R-rated movies, and it was entertaining to see, LeBron and Bugs Bunny trying to, find the other tunes, because Algae Rhythm, the Don Cheadle character, has coaxed all the other tunes into leaving the Toon World and going into other films. And so we see that there's characters in the Wonder Woman universe, like that's where they find Lola hanging out. We go to Casablanca and even into the Matrix, so it's kind of fun that they kind of, put those Looney Tunes characters into those famous films, and seeing all these characters during the basketball game is a lot of fun. But I think the setup is stronger, like, telling the story, and then when we have the game, it just feels empty. We had the Monstars, which I always thought these guys were great. I love the Monstars. I remember collecting the McDonald's toys of them, and they were just unique. I liked, how they had different colors and different looks and different sizes to them. Here we kind of just have, we have basketball players where they've been superimposed onto bodies. Like we have like a WNBA player, and her body is put onto a snake. And I just thought like a lot of this stuff just seemed very unoriginal. I get, oh, so this is something a little different. That you could at least say that, I suppose. That they actually got some other famous basketball players to, actually voice these characters and lend their likenesses to them. And that's interesting. Now we do actually get to see the Monstars, before what they looked like before they became the Monstars. They make a little cameo even, and I thought that was funny. But yeah, like during the game, there's not a lot of fun stuff happening during it. Like they didn't have a lot of the funny jokes and everything. You don't have Bill Murray this time around. You don't have Wayne Knight. And it is. it is funny, they do have some cameos from different actors. Like, there's one part, and this is the part where I gotta say it's a bit of an eye roller. Here's the thing. You got this whole debate, and the whole reason why people don't want to see this movie. For the one thing that also affects my enjoyment, if it was somebody that I actually like and actually respected, I've lost a lot of respect for a lot of actors, but I can still separate their idiocy from their bodies of work. But LeBron James kind of goes above and beyond when it comes to being a giant asshole. That really was stopping me from jumping into this movie the first few days that it was released. So, the big debate also is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was an icon. Michael Jordan, only said something outside of basketball and was inspirational. And the thing with that is that he never really crossed his boundaries. He never divided his audience. He never said something that could be perceived as stupid. It was always very inspirational. He would talk about his upbringing. He would say that, he wasn't from the best upbringing and he wanted better for his kids and for everyone else like that lived in his neighborhood. So there was always a good, strong, positive message coming from the Jordan camp. But, with LeBron, you kind of have a very controversial figure in this movie where even the people that like him and respect him as a player, and don't get me wrong, I do. You can't deny the man of his talent. But when you're putting someone into a role like this, with the Looney Tunes, you kind of want somebody wholesome, right? Like Jordan. And, they do make LeBron act wholesome here, but most people know that he's not. And so that really divides the reality here and really, strips it of any worth that it really has with that in mind. Now, I'll admit, he does a decent job here. He does not do a bad job. It's an adequate acting job. He gets it done. He reads all the lines. There's nothing really where I would be lying if I said it was bad. But here's the part, where I think that it's just really, really stupid and it's a real big eye roller for me, is the part where they're in the locker room and Sylvester claims that he's recruited Michael Jordan. And, we all heard that Jordan wasn't going to be in this film. He wasn't going to make a cameo. That you could maybe believe for a moment that perhaps, maybe they might have just managed to get him into this film. But no, it's Michael B. Jordan who walks into the locker room, and they even mock Sylvester for this. But, the look on LeBron's face, like he's about to see somebody better than him, and the funny thing is this debate, and then you have this part in the movie. I don't know. I think they should have stayed away from that, really, because it makes me think of just how much I enjoyed that film. And I also had rewatched it when they put it on Netflix a while back. I think it's maybe been about a year since I watched Space Jam last. But it's such an enjoyable film, and it's so lighthearted, and the jokes are firing on all cylinders. Now, the one thing I will say, probably one of my favorite things about this film, is the animation. So I did like the fact that they drew LeBron as a cartoon, in the Looney Tunes style, which is something they didn't even do for Michael Jordan in the original. They kind of just wanted to have that Who Framed Roger Rabbit style of live action mixed with animation. And I understand why they did that, but it is cool that they decided to do this, but you never, until the end, get to see LeBron with that, like, original hand-drawn animation. But then as the game gets going, they all get an upgrade and they're all CGI. And I gotta say that this is probably some of the most beautiful looking CGI cartoon characters I think I've ever seen. And I don't think that the film is getting enough credit for it. And this is why I said, I can't pan this movie. I might have problems with it. I think it lacks the humor and the originality. And, it's not like they went crazy with the callbacks. But this film did seem like it was very by the numbers. They didn't really seem like they went above and beyond, besides, transposing them into movies, famous films that were Warner Brothers produced or licensed films. They didn't really do anything, beyond that, really, with some of the jokes and everything. They kind of seemed like jokes we've already seen, and they weren't as original. And when you think about it, you're dealing with the Looney Tunes, which has always been, very. You look back, and if you haven't seen the Looney Tunes cartoons from when you're a kid, you got to go back and watch them. I feel like they're way better made to me now than when I was a kid, and I appreciate them so much more. But that's besides the point. Anyway, it turns out that it's Industrial Light and Magic. Yeah, the same guys who worked on Star Wars and Indiana Jones and did all those effects, they worked on this film. They're responsible for these effects and the CGI, and it looks so crisp. And I'm like looking at, Lola and Bugs and like the fur on their bodies. It's kind of breathtaking. It really is. I was like, when I first like saw the CGI, like, oh man, is this how the film's gonna be? And it's not all like this. Like I said, you get a pretty good portion of hand-drawn animation. But when they switched to the CGI, I gotta say, I didn't mind it because it looks so damn beautiful. And it really does. And I even was saying that to myself through the trailer. And as I'm watching the film and seeing it in action even more, I'm like, wow, this is really a good-looking movie. And a lot of the effects with Don Cheadle and everything, and the way the cyberverse is designed, I think that it looked really, really, really good. And I mean, I think it's a spectacular looking film. It's just that, there's not a whole lot of meat to this movie that I'm enjoying. Like I said, when you get to the game, and that's pretty much half of the movie, they're on the basketball court for a good 45 minutes, which, undoubtedly was like probably the best part of the original film because it was so fun and entertaining. They switch it up. They made this more like a video game. They did more like tricks and tried to do like little jokes of trying to throw this in and try to make it kind of like an NBA Jam sort of thing. And I guess that's what they were going for. But it felt like kind of like they were overcompensating by trying to like change the rules with the game, and they're getting styles points instead of it just being like normal scoring for a basketball game. And it kind of plays into this story because this is supposed to be the game that LeBron's son, Dom, was designing, and they're like kind of in that game, and that's why they're playing against these other NBA players that are now like customized avatars that have come to life. So it kind of like fits into it and everything, and you kind of see like where they're coming from, but it's just not as good. That's really how it is. And I mean, maybe this is a nostalgic take, and this is just my opinion, but I'm being honest. I'm not like coming from the perspective like some viewers like are, I'm reviewing this like I'm going to be coming into this fresh, because I'm just honestly not going to do that. I'm going to just basically tell you the way I feel about this film as I'm watching this. That's pretty much how it is. It's a spectacular looking movie, but it's not really like a lot of fun is what it is. And that's kind of like the basis of a film like this. You're watching it for fun. You're watching it for entertainment purposes. You're watching it to laugh, right? And I'm not like really laughing. There was a few parts that I giggled at and everything, but there's not really a lot of good entertainment in this film. Like I said, there's like, it's adequate. They get from point A to point B quite nicely, and the story does progress at a reasonable pace. Now, it did feel a little bit overly long, this movie. It truly did. Like, Space Jam, like the first film, I have it up here on Wikipedia in front of me. That movie was 88 minutes. And that's counting the credits. So you subtract like 5 minutes for the credits. How the hell, like on HBO Max, when I'm watching A New Legacy, the film we're talking about here, the sequel, why is this film an hour and 55 minutes? That's including the credits. Like, why is it so much longer? Why is it nearly a half an hour longer? Like, they're not telling some big, complicated story where they need to have all this, you know, and like even some of the parts where we've got Don Cheadle talking to Dom, and that's like the whole thing. He puts Dom on the Goon Squad, which is the team that's the opposition. And, you know, we're not really getting anything from Dom. You know, Dom's a kid, he's a young actor and everything. So, you know, these conversations, they're not fun, and they're playing the game and everything. It's like, I don't know, I felt like they could have just sped through this a little bit, change a few things so it'll still make sense. But, like, you know, this is a film, like, where they should have based it around the first one a little bit more, where we need to get in and get out. This is a Looney Tunes film. You know, we're not making some big, huge, you know, film with all sorts of character development and this and that, and, you know, complex plots and twists and turns. You know, it's Space Jam 2. So, you know, and that's not a knock at it, because, like I said, it's one of my favorite childhood films, probably of all time. And, you know, this is a film that means a lot to me. You know, I'm just going to close out by saying this. And I'll explain, like, why it, like, feels so important to me and is so important to me. Okay, so, you know, I've watched the film countless times as a kid. But, like, how much would I say that this is, like, worth watching, Space Jam: A New Legacy? To see the animation, yes. I would say it is a good idea to see it for that. But you got to be, like, a big animation fan like me and really be, like, appreciate it and watch it. So, like, in a way, I was happy I watched it, because this was probably one of the glorious things I've ever seen from a visual and, like, graphical standpoint. I mean, visually, this movie is fucking stunning. It truly is. But, you know, from, like, a story perspective and it being a sequel, that's a bad sequel. I'm just going to say it straight up. I was expecting it to be, and you can make the argument that I went into it with a bad attitude, and therefore that's why I have that opinion. But, you know, be that as it may, I think it is. I think it's a pretty shitty sequel. I don't think that it delivers on the same points and entertainment as the first film. You know, like, when you have Bill Murray in your film and you have, you know, Michael B. Jordan showing up for 2 seconds, you know, because his name is also technically Michael Jordan, you know, and that's, you know, that's like what you're delivering on. That, I'm sorry, that's not good. So, yeah, it's not a good sequel. Could it have been a lot worse? I think it definitely could have. And the funny thing is that a lot of people making the argument that this film was for kids, and if you didn't enjoy it, well, that, you know, and someone had said this to me on Facebook even, you know, when I was saying, like, I'm actually happy that the movie didn't do well, because that means that LeBron didn't do well. And, you know, someone was saying to me that, you know, well, this is a movie for kids anyway. So, like, okay, so we're all not allowed to have an opinion, even for animation fans, and we grew up with this sort of movie, and it resonates with us due to those nostalgic reasons. And you're telling me that they went out of their way to call this a sequel, to make this a direct sequel. You're not telling me that they weren't banking on having fans, kids that watched the original Space Jam as kids, seeing this movie as adults, taking their kids to go see it, and just, you know, taking their friends to go see it, whatever the case may be. You're telling me that they put all this other nostalgic stuff that no kids have ever seen in their life. Have they seen The Matrix? Have they seen Casablanca? Have they seen the 60s Batman? Have they watched all these old Hanna-Barbera cartoons? No to all the above, probably, unless you showed them to your kids. So I don't want to hear this excuse when there's the fucking clown in the audience that this movie is just for kids and anyone that's an adult is not allowed to have an opinion on the film. Seriously, if that is what you're saying, go screw yourself, because you don't know what you're talking about. All right? Yeah, Are they banking on kids also seeing this? Oh, hell yeah. But they're also banking on this nostalgia crowd to see this too. So I don't want to hear any of those arguments that an opinion from you on this film is invalid because you're not a kid. I'm saying it's a film. It's there to be analyzed. It's there to be reviewed. It's there to be critiqued. People are going to have different views on it. And if they didn't want like a new, like the old audience to come in, they would have just rebooted the movie and not even mentioned the original and make all of these references to the original. So that does not make any sense whatsoever. Thank you very much. But anyway, this film was given to me on VHS by my uncle, who worked at, I believe it was Time Warner, and he got this movie for me before it even came onto VHS. I remember he gave it to me, like they actually like had the tape there because they were going to be playing it on like HBO, like the premium channels. He brought the tape home to me, and then he passed away like a few years later. And I remember as a kid, because I loved the original Space Jam so much, that meant so much to me that he thought of me to bring me that tape. And you could imagine, and I'm sure a lot of people have not just memories of this film from that perspective, but from many different types of films that people hold near and dear to their hearts. So yeah, so that's why this film is also very special to me, because when I think of it, think of my uncle, and that makes me feel good. And I'm sure people have memories of seeing the film with their parents. So Space Jam, the original film, has a lot of positive memories connected to it from all over the world, from all over the country. It's an iconic film without a doubt, and a very successful film. And this film, of course, this is what people are saying. It's not fair to compare, right? I still believe that it is. So, yeah, great animation. Not a very good movie, but not a very bad one either. I think a lot of the reviews out there are very exaggerated. It's a serviceable film. It doesn't make you want to gouge your eyes out or, cry nonstop because you wasted your life, moments of your life watching this film. Yeah, so, I would say, try to check it out. If you have HBO Max, I don't think it's a big burden on you to spend, close to 2 hours watching this film. If you're, a big Space Jam fan like me. But, if you thought the original film was okay and you're not like that much into seeing, like great animation, and just seeing a few screenshots and a trailer of it is enough for you, then by all means, I wouldn't say the waste your time. But I don't really feel like I really wasted my time so much. But anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get auto notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.